Korea, Bank, and Arirang TV present the Get Korea Right project. Our goal is to provide accurate information on important keywords that come to mind when we think of Korea. Blatant errors and false claims that distort history. It's time to set the record straight, sharing the true history and culture of Korea while raising the national brand. Let's get started with Get Korea Right. Are you ready to join?
Curious about what's special about K-content?
In recent years, Korean cultural content has taken the world by storm.
So, what's your favorite K-content? Movies, dramas, music, exhibitions?
Are you ready to take your pick?
Starting with globally acclaimed K-movies. It's no longer rare for Korean movies to receive awards at international film festivals. And we can't talk enough about the K-drama sensation.
It's not surprising that drama filming sites go on to become major tourist attractions.
When we are on the topic of K-pop, we can't leave out idol groups. They are the driving force of K-pop.
K-pop idol group members do not only have exceptional singing and dancing skills, but they have the looks too. I'm a huge fan.
I really like Korean underground music. These days, talented K-indie bands are recognized overseas as well.
Oh, and Korea also has a lot of music festivals. You can meet musicians of all genres at these events.
Exhibitions happen in Korea all year round.
I also enjoy going to the theatre. There's no shortage of musicals, plays, and performances to choose from. So keep an eye on the theatre scene.
Then there is K-design, blending traditional and modern elements.
K-fashion, leading trends.
K-beauty, which takes beauty to the next level.
K-content receiving praise the world over. Watch it, experience it, and enjoy it.
Travel creates new experiences and unforgettable memories. Through landscapes, food, scents, and textures, it awakens and satisfies our senses. The endless joy and inspiration of traveling.
The Democratic Party is set to launch its election campaign committee tomorrow, hoping to reach out to voters beyond those leaning liberal. Meanwhile, the People Power Party contenders were narrowed down to Kim Moon-soo and Han Dong-hun, with the final announcement expected on Saturday. North Korea's military delegation has left for Moscow ahead of the day marking the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory in World War II, which will be in early May. This follows public acknowledgement of the regime having sent troops to help Russia's war against Ukraine. A forest fire in Daegu City was put out on Tuesday after wreaking havoc on the area on a massive scale for the past 23 hours. It's April 29th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start with the latest on the political front. Having elected its presidential candidate for the June 3rd election, the Democratic Party is poised to launch its campaign committee tomorrow, open to figures from across the political spectrum. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
With 5 weeks left until the presidential election, the Democratic Party, having officially confirmed former leader Lee Jae-myung as its presidential candidate, is now putting together its election campaign committee. With plans to launch the committee on Wednesday, the party aims to form it with a focus on unity.
A true Republic of Korea is a community that comes together through greater unity and cooperation. That's what we need to build. Starting tomorrow, the DP will shift into campaign mode and focus all its efforts on winning the presidential election.
He has been taking steps to emphasize unity and broaden his appeal to centrist and conservative voters, mentioning the word unity 14 times in his acceptance speech on Sunday. The party said the committee will include members from various factions regardless of their political background. It has already shown such an intention by recruiting former Environment Minister Yoon Yeo-jun, known as a conservative strategist, to one of the top posts in the campaign. The party is also open to bringing in more centrist and conservative figures from across the political spectrum. Lee is reportedly planning to meet with his primary rivals, Kim Kyung-soo, former Gyeongsangnam-do Province Governor, and Kim Dong-yeon, current Gyeonggi-do Province Governor. Kim Dong-yeon cannot officially join the committee because he is a sitting governor, but Kim Kyung-soo is expected to join if asked. Liberal figures outside East faction, such as former Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun and Kim Bu-kyum, are also being considered for the campaign committee. Kang Keum-sil, a former justice minister under the Nomuyen administration, is joining the campaign as the committee's chief chair. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The People Power Party contenders are now cut to two: Kim Moon-soo and Han Dong-hun, who do not see eye to eye when it comes to the ouster of the former president. The party will hold a runoff election, and the results are expected on Saturday. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
It's now down to two, Kim Moon-soo and Han Dong-hun. The People Power Party announced the winners of the second round of voting on Tuesday. The second round had been fierce, with no clear frontrunner from the 3 days of heated debates. But as the results were announced, they continued to emphasize party unity, as the Democratic Party of Korea's Lee Jae-myung, certainly not an easy opponent, awaits in the presidential election.
I'm also grateful to Han Dong-hun for joining me in the final stage of the primary. I believe he has a bright future ahead, and I look forward to seeing him play a major role for the good of our country.
In this challenging presidential race, there are differences between Kim Moon-soo and I. But that's exactly why we must team up, like a three-legged race, and stand as one against Lee Jae-myung.
The results follow voting on Sunday and Monday under the same rules as the second round, 50% PPP members and 50% an open survey. Neither candidate secured over 50% of the total tally, leading to a runoff, proving the tightness of the race. A one-on-one debate will be held on Wednesday, followed by voting, with the final result announced on Saturday at the party's presidential race convention. Meanwhile, An Chul-soo, in his exit speech, pledged to support the winner of the race.
We must work harder to overcome the crisis facing our party. Whoever wins, I'll give my all to stop Lee Jae-myung and bring about a change in government.
Hong Jun-pyo, as he said before, declared his retirement from politics, a 30-year career with 5 terms at the parliament and 2 gubernatorial posts.
I will return to private life and live quietly. My role in this presidential race ends here.
The race yet again is between one candidate who was against impeachment, Kim Moon-soo, and one pro-impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol, Han Dong-hoon. This translates to someone more appealing to conservative and traditional PPP members versus someone more appealing to moderate and undecided voters. In addition, Kim has been openly supporting the idea of acting President Han Duck-soo running for the presidency and merging camps, while Han has even called the party's support of this a defeatist mindset. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The Supreme Court will rule this week on the election law violation case of the Democratic Party presidential candidate, Lee Jae-myung. According to the court on Tuesday, the verdict will be delivered at 3 p.m. on Thursday, May 1st. This comes 34 days after the case was submitted, following an appeal by prosecutors against a high court ruling that had overturned an initial guilty verdict last month. The top court decided last week to have the full bench oversee the case and has been reviewing it at an unusually fast pace. Lee was convicted of making false statements during the previous presidential campaign when he was a candidate. Lee denied knowing a man involved in a land development scandal in the city of Seongnam during a media interview in 2021, and also reportedly made false claims during a related National Assembly audit. The ruling will be broadcast live on the court's YouTube channel. In other news, a North Korean military delegation has departed for Moscow ahead of Russia's Victory Day in May. Earlier, the regime has made public Putin thanking Pyongyang for sending troops to help Russia amid their ever-growing military alliance. Kim Bo-kyung explains.
Ahead of Russia's 80th Victory Day celebrations on May 9th, North Korea's military delegation has left for Moscow to attend an international event. According to the North state-run Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday, the delegation led by the deputy director of the General Political Bureau of the North Korean People's Army departed Pyongyang. Though the North's media said the visit was for an international anti-fascist conference, speculation has risen over the possibility of the delegation visiting Moscow to discuss Russia's Victory Day parade or North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's potential visit to Russia around that time.
Instead of attending Russia's Victory Day ceremony, the focus is likely to be on a potential North Korea-Russia summit, with Kim Jong-un's visit to Russia expected to happen around that time. Rather than participating as just another leader in a multilateral setting, Kim is likely to focus on a one-on-one meeting where his alliance with Russia and contributions to its war effort could be more highlighted.
The North's 노동신문 newspaper published Putin's recent statement thanking Pyongyang on its front page. This came a day after North Korea officially confirmed its troop deployment to Russia. Putin's statement said that the deployment was in accordance with international laws, along with the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty, which Kim and Putin signed in June last year. While expressing his deepest gratitude to North Korea, Putin claimed Russia would forever remember the heroes of Korea who sacrificed their lives for Russia and for their shared freedom. Meanwhile, as both Pyongyang and Moscow have now admitted the deployment of North Korean troops, Ukraine urged tougher sanctions on them on Monday local time. Ukraine's foreign ministry said the deployment is in violation of international laws and UN Security Council resolutions, and stressed that the deepening military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow would pose a threat not only to the Korean peninsula, but also to global security. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Russia's Putin has once again unilaterally called for a ceasefire in Ukraine, this time a 72-hour truce starting next Thursday, ahead of its Victory Day celebration. Washington calls for the one that is permanent. Shin Se-byuk covers this latest development.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday unilaterally declared a 3-day ceasefire in Ukraine from May 8th to the 10th to mark the 80th anniversary of Victory Day, 2 weeks after a 30-hour truce over Easter. The latest announcement made via a Telegram message added that the ceasefire was, quote, based on humanitarian considerations. It further explained that all military actions will be prohibited during the ceasefire period and called on Ukraine to follow the ceasefire protocols. It warned that if Ukraine violates the ceasefire, the Russian military would respond, quote, appropriately and effectively. The temporary ceasefire also comes as U.S. President Donald Trump warned on Saturday that he may consider introducing sanctions against Russia if Putin doesn't intend to end the war. However, the White House on Monday stressed that what Trump wants to see is a permanent ceasefire, adding that the U.S. leader has been frustrated with the lack of progress made in peace talks between Moscow and Kyiv.
He wants to see a permanent ceasefire. The president has made it clear he wants to see a permanent ceasefire, first to stop the killing, stop the bloodshed.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in a video speech on Monday also dismissed Moscow's announcement as, unquote, attempt at manipulation, and called for an unconditional ceasefire for at least 30 days.
Now, once again, there is another attempt at manipulation. An immediate, complete, and unconditional ceasefire for at least 30 days to ensure it is guaranteed and reliable is what can provide the foundation for real diplomacy.
According to one expert, Putin's unilateral ceasefire decision is a gesture aimed at seizing the initiative in war-related negotiations and attempting to negotiate directly with Trump, bypassing Ukraine.
If I am a bit blunt here, Ukraine can only resist Russia with the help of the US. So what Putin is trying to do now is that he's trying to negotiate directly with Trump over the head of Ukrainians.
He added that Putin's underlying message is clear that he can end the war at any time if his demands are met. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
A forest fire in Daegu was contained on Tuesday after wreaking havoc on the area on a massive scale for the past 23 hours, with authorities yet letting their guards down. An Sung-jin has this report.
An area the size of nearly 400 soccer fields has turned into ash. At around 12:55 p.m. on Tuesday, the massive forest fire that covered Hamjisan Mountain in the city of Daegu had been put out after nearly 24 hours. The fire reportedly broke out around 2 p.m. on Monday along the ridge of the mountain, and due to strong winds of up to 15 meters per second, the fire spread rapidly. Considering that the city had blocked off walking paths as part of forest fire prevention measures, authorities will thoroughly scrutinize how the fire started. During the fire, authorities had issued a Forest Fire Response Level 3, the highest level, which is issued when damage to more than 100 hectares is expected. Approximately 260 hectares of land were affected by this fire. The Korea Forest Service had deployed more than 50 helicopters and 1,500 personnel. Daegu City had sent alert messages to residents to close their windows and make sure there isn't any additional damage due to smoke, though no casualties have been reported so far. Recent dry weather combined with warmer temperatures and a high-pressure system raised the likelihood of the fire spreading. Though the fire has been contained, authorities are advising caution.
Forest fires are still dangerous because they can spread even with a small spark under thick layers of leaves or rocks. We will be monitoring for 24 hours to make sure that the fire has been completely extinguished.
The local government had also pledged to provide support for damage investigation, psychological counseling, and property support for residents. Han Sung-jin, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., arrived in South Korea on Tuesday at the invitation of Shin Se-gye Group Chairman Chung Yong-jin. Trump Jr. is scheduled to meet with approximately 20 Korean business leaders during a two-day visit. South Korean exporters to the U.S., especially manufacturers in the semiconductor, auto, and defense sectors, are reportedly keen to engage with him. Leaders from Samsung, SK, and other companies will reportedly exchange opinions on economic issues and strengthen networks between Korea and the U.S. Canada's Liberal Party has won a fourth consecutive election, with Mark Carney set to become the next Prime Minister. The former central bank governor took office last month, following predecessor Justin Trudeau's resignation, and quickly called a snap election, prompting Canadians to vote on Monday. He highlighted his crisis management experience, hoping Canadians would see him as the strongest leader to confront U.S. President Trump amid a trade war. The party's remarkable recovery follows a challenging period, but uncertainty remains over whether the Liberals secured a majority, which would require it to get backing from other parties to govern. The Catholic Church will begin the process of picking a new pope next week on May 7th. As our Lee Jae-myung reports, the College of Cardinals is more diverse than ever.
The Vatican announced Monday that the conclave to elect the new pope will begin on May 7th local time. Following Pope Francis's death on April 21st, 135 cardinals under the age of 80 from around the world will gather at the Vatican to participate in the secret election. Preparations are already underway, with the Sistine Chapel closed to the public on the same day. The conclave, conducted via anonymous voting, continues until a candidate achieves a 2/3 majority. On the first day, voting will take place just once, but during the subsequent days, ballots will be cast up to 4 times daily. After each round of voting, the ballots are burned, with the color of the smoke indicating the result. Black smoke rising from the Sistine Chapel's chimney signals that no decision has been reached. However, when a pope is finally chosen, white smoke will be seen, and the bells of St. Peter's Basilica will toll. And with the dates of the conclave announced, attention is now turning to potential successors who could shape the future of the Catholic Church. Highly discussed contenders include Cardinals Pietro Parolin of Italy, Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, Pier Battista Pizzaballa of Italy, Peter Turkson of Ghana, and Peter Erdo of Hungary. Also among the papabili, which refers to those in the running to become the next pope, is Korean Cardinal Lazaro Yuhung-sik. Italy's most read daily newspaper, the Corriere della Sera, last week named Yu among the 12 leading candidates for the papacy. Though there is no fixed time limit, modern conclaves have typically lasted 2 to 3 days, with the longest in recent history lasting 5 days. With a more diverse College of Cardinals than ever before, the Catholic community awaits the election of its new spiritual leader. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
Staying in Europe, an unprecedented power outage has plunged Portugal and Spain into complete darkness. Park Hyo-bin has more.
Cheers erupted as lights gradually flickered back on across the Iberian peninsula late Monday night. By early Tuesday, around 90% of Spain's national grid had been restored, with lights also returning to Lisbon. The massive blackout had plunged much of the region into chaos earlier in the day. Traffic lights went dark, causing major traffic disruption. Police were dispatched to key intersections to manually direct traffic. Subways and trains ground to a halt, leaving hundreds of tourists and residents trapped in the dark, many experiencing moments of panic. High-speed train services were also disrupted, forcing passengers to disembark.
They opened the doors so it could, freshen up and everything. After, I would say, an hour, the battery died down of the train, and then that's it. The bathrooms weren't working, so it's so stupid because everything was electronic.
As the Spanish government declared a national emergency, long lines formed outside supermarkets and gas stations as people rushed to stock up on essentials.
I don't know. We've been without electricity for a while now. We don't know how long it's going to be, so we're buying what's possible to buy for the moment.
The exact cause of the outrage is under investigation.
It's better not to speculate. We'll know the cause. We do not rule out any hypothesis, but now we must focus on the most important thing, which is to restore electricity to our homes.
The two countries held emergency cabinet meetings in response to the crisis. Spain is receiving emergency electricity from France and Morocco, but no timeline has been given for full restoration. Meanwhile, Portugal expects normal service to resume as early as Tuesday, prioritizing hospitals, airports, and railways. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
Korean businesses, like many others in the world, are facing challenges in today's turbulent trade environment. Our Lee Soo-jin spoke with the head of the American Chamber of Commerce in Korea on how they can navigate this uncertain landscape.
U.S. President Donald Trump's hardline tariff agenda is fueling rapid, unpredictable shifts in the global trading landscape. South Korean companies are among those heavily impacted, which is why they're actively exploring new strategies to adapt to the shifting environment. We sat down with the president and CEO of the American Chamber of Commerce in Seoul on Tuesday, who spoke highly of the contributions that Korean companies have made to the U.S. economy.
I think that Korean companies have done an amazing job. If you take a look at the past 3 years, Korean companies have made around $140 billion worth of investment in America, making them the largest foreign direct investor in the United States. So if you are an American politician, a governor, or even the president of the United States, I think you have to recognize the big contributions that Korean companies have made.
But while Korean companies' contributions have been significant, more effort is needed to raise awareness of both these contributions and their broader strengths, particularly among the American public.
If you talk to an average American citizen who's living in Illinois, I don't think they know that Korean companies are the largest foreign direct investor. But I think that that's the mainstream America that Korean government and the Korean companies should really help educate the American public. And I would use the American citizens a lot more to be their ambassador.
And what are some specific strengths do you think American citizens should know about Korean companies?
Infrastructure is amazing. The people of Korea work very, very hard, very, very efficient. This is a great market to test out new products. The digital side of it is amazing, right? So those are the kind of aspects that people should know about Korea and why Korea is an important market for them to even consider investing in and doing business.
And the more the U.S. and its people view Korea as an important market, the more investment and partnerships will follow, which will naturally give Korea greater leverage against Trump's protectionist measures. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
With warm and clear weather, dry conditions continue every day. Currently, dry weather advisories have been expanded to most parts of the country, and dry weather warnings are in effect for most parts of the East Coast, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, Daegu, and Gyeongsang-buk-do Province. In addition, strong winds of around 20 meters per second will blow along the coast and the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do Province until tomorrow. In these winds, small embers can turn into large fires, so please take extra precautions. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at 12 degrees, Busan at 13 degrees. There will be high temperatures across the country tomorrow. Rain is forecast across the country on Thursday afternoon to ease off the dryness of the atmosphere. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.
Travel creates new experiences and unforgettable memories. Through landscapes, food, scents, and textures, it awakens and satisfies our senses. The endless joy and inspiration of traveling.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and...
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
설레지 않을 것이고 여름이 와도 나는 흔들리지 않을 거야 가을이 오면
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-kyan. Beginning this week, official negotiations on tariffs between South Korea and the U.S. kicks off as both sides aim to address the ongoing trade tensions. The two countries have agreed to focus their discussions under four main sectors: tariff, economic security, investment cooperation, and notably exchange rates. While the U.S. seeks a fast-paced resolution, South Korea is calling for a more measured approach, largely as the nation awaits a snap election in June. Now, this timing and the differing priorities raise critical questions about how the acting government will navigate these high-stakes talks with the United States. So for more on this, we connect to Lee Yoon-soo, professor of economics at Seogang University. Welcome, professor.
Thank you for having me.
And also joining us is Choi Sang-mi, professor of business administration at Ewha Women's University. Great to see you.
Good evening.
So let's start a discussion with Professor Lee first. So during the recent 2+2 trade consultation, the inclusion of exchange rates actually as a key issue was kind of unexpected. How significant is this for South Korea's economy, and what kind of impact could this have on the country's currency policy and broader strategies?
Yeah, you are right. The inclusion of exchange rate in the recent 2+2 trade consultation between South Korea and the U.S. was indeed unexpected. It shows that the U.S. is placing greater focus on currency issues in the trade talks. Clearly, the U.S. is concerned that South Korea may have kept the won undervalued to support its exports. However, it's important to point out that South Korea has made efforts to prevent the won from weakening too much, not strengthening. Both the government and the Bank of Korea have worked to stabilize the currency, aiming for trade practices and avoiding large fluctuation in exchange rate. So there is a clear misunderstanding that we have to clear it out. Still, the development is significant for South Korea. If the U.S. pushes for a stronger won, it could hurt the price competitiveness of Korean exports, which are a key part of our economy. Also, trying to support the won could require interest rate hikes or drawdown from foreign reserves, both of which could add pressure to the domestic economy. So in response, South Korea needs to strike a balance, maintaining export strength while addressing U.S. concerns. That may involve showing more transparency in currency policy and engaging in diplomacy to explain the real reasons behind the exchange rate movement.
Right, so this definitely seems to be raising the stakes. Now, there's also speculation that the U.S. might push for a second Plaza Accord in a bid to weaken the dollar. Professor Choi, could you explain for our viewers what this is and what effects this could have on Korea's foreign exchange stability?
All right. The original Plaza Accord in 1985 involved the major countries working together to weaken the U.S. dollar to fix trade imbalances. If we see a new Plaza Accord, the Korean won could rise sharply, making Korean products like cars and electronics more expensive overseas. For example, companies like Hyundai and Samsung might find it harder to compete with Japanese or European firms. So to protect its economy, Korea would need to step up efforts to stabilize its currency and shield exporters.
Many would maybe not remember the original Plaza Accord, but this impact on global currency values seems to be quite massive. Now, if the U.S. continues to link exchange rates to trade imbalances, Professor Lee, how could this actually affect the overall tone and the outcome of the Seoul-Washington tariff discussions? And also, could you tell us what strategies should South Korea adopt to mitigate the impact?
Okay, so if the U.S. continues to tie exchange rate to trade imbalances, it adds complexity to the tariff negotiation going on between South Korea and the U.S. The U.S. may argue that a weaker Korean won contributed to the trade imbalance, pressuring South Korea to allow its currency to become strong. This could make Korean exports more expensive and less attractive in global markets, potentially hurting our export-driven economy. To mitigate this effect, South Korea should emphasize that it does not manipulate its currency and that the won's value reflects market conditions. Additionally, diversifying export markets and investing in high-value industry may reduce reliance on any single market like U.S. So strengthening domestic demand may also help balance the economy.
Right, and also diversifying the market itself would be definitely helpful. Now, let's also touch upon the key rates, Professor Che. Given the significant differences between U.S. and South Korean interest rates, do you think the U.S. could actually pressure South Korea's central bank to adjust its policies? And if so, how would such pressure affect South Korea's monetary policy?
Yes, the U.S. might pressure Korea to raise interest rate or scale back currency market interventions. But if the Bank of Korea follows foreign pressure too much, it could hurt its credibility at home and abroad as well. For example, sudden rate hikes could slow Korea's real estate market and reduce consumer spending. So the best path is for Korea to base its monetary policy on domestic needs, inflation and growth, as you know, and also strengthen currency swap agreement with allies to cushion any shocks happen in the market.
Right. So as for the BOK, this kind of pressure could create a real actual dilemma, especially with the current growth situation. Now, the U.S. is actually seeking South Korea's participation in the Alaska LNG project as part of broader trade negotiations. So what kind of potential benefits or risks does this actually present to South Korean businesses?
Joining the Alaska LNG project offers long-term benefit like securing energy supplies and building stronger U.S. and Korea ties. However, there are serious risks too. As you know, the cost of building infrastructure in remote Alaska are extremely high, and environmental regulations are becoming tougher and tougher. For example, if the global demands for LNG force or clean energy transition faster than expected, then Korean companies could face large financial losses. And so it's very crucial for Korean firms to do very thorough the market and risk assessments before investing.
Right, so it means a very high cost. But what about the benefits, Professor? Could you point out for them again?
Benefit, so we can make up a good relationship with the U.S., as I told you. And we can buy that, the energy, the LNG, the cheaper than the current, cost. Because, if we import that LNG from Alaska, the distance is shorter than the current, supplies. So that could be benefit.
Right. Thank you for explaining for us again. Now, there's also some concerning news. The IMF actually expects a 1.5% global economic contraction compared to its previous forecast before Trump's inauguration, which possibly is affected by Trump's trade policies. Professor Lee, how do you see this impacting South Korea's economy, and what specific strategies should the government implement to cushion the blow?
Yes, the tariff on the Liberation Day earlier this month made a big impact on the forecast of the IMF, not just on the stock market. South Korea is very sensitive to changes in the global economy because we rely heavily on exports. If the U.S.-China trade tensions continue, these countries are our largest trade partner, it will directly affect our exports and slow down our overall growth. In fact, the IMF recently lowered Korea's 2025 growth forecast to just 1%. This is 1 percentage point lower than earlier estimates, and the magnitude of contraction in the economic size is a lot larger in Korea than for the global economy, 1.5% you just mentioned. This revised number show that the global situation is already weighing on our economy. In particular, our manufacturing sector, especially electronics and automobiles, is very dependent on global supply chains, and we also export like 1/3 of automobiles to the US. If the trade war drags on, production and exports in these industries could contract even further. To cushion the impact, the Korean government needs to some policies to strengthen support for export companies in particular. So possible measures like tax cuts or financial assistance may help business manage this difficult period. At the same time, it is important to diversify our export market, as I previously mentioned. Korea should work to build stronger trade ties with emerging regions like Southeast Asia, South America, and Africa, so we are less dependent on the US and China. Finally, I think most important thing is to invest more in future industry like semiconductors, AI, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology. These sectors can drive long-term growth and help Korea stay competitive in a changing global economy. To summarize, we need both short-term support and long-term planning to get through these challenges and build a stronger foundation for the future.
Right, that would definitely be helpful since, 1.5 figure-wise may not be huge, but in terms of, macroeconomic terms, it's a very serious warning. Now, shifting gears, just today, a few hours ago, Donald Trump Jr., the son of U.S. President Donald Trump, came to South Korea at the invitation of Shinsegae Group Chairman Chung Yong-jin. And during his two-day visit, he is expected to meet with top executives of major South Korean conglomerates. Professor Che, how would you foresee this visit kind of influencing business relations between the two countries in light of, the tariff negotiations?
And I can say that Trump Jr.'s visit is kind of symbolic, but very important, I think. While it won't directly change the tariff, negotiation or official policy, could strengthen, our personal and also corporate networks between Korean and American businesses. So, for instances, it could open the door for future joint ventures, especially in areas like infrastructure, energy, and emerging technology like AI, right? And Korean companies should treat this visit as a strategic opportunity to build deeper business ties with a U.S. partner, I think.
Mm-hmm. And given the optics of this visit and who he's going to meet, it seems many would hope for some tangible, results and discussions. Meanwhile, actually, in a significant move, Trump has announced plans to separate tariff and defense cost negotiations. And from an economic perspective, what do you think is the strategic reasoning behind this decision? And how might this actually shift in approach influence South Korea's leverage in trade negotiations, Professor Lee?
Separating tariffs and defense negotiations give the U.S. more flexibility and stronger bargaining power, I think. By dealing with trade and security issues separately, the U.S. can apply pressure on allies like South Korea and Japan in each area independently, without letting one issue block progress in the other. Economically, this allows the U.S. to focus purely on trade benefits when they talk about tariffs and to push for higher defense contribution separately based on security needs. So it's a way for the U.S. to strengthen its negotiating position by keeping discussion more targeted and specialized. For South Korea, this separation is not necessarily a bad thing. It actually reduces the risk of making concessions in one area just to gain benefits in another area. For example, we don't want to sacrifice security interests for better trade terms or the other way around. By keeping trade and defense negotiations separate, Korea has a better chance to negotiate the best possible outcome in each area, based on our own economic and security priorities.
Right, so not really a bad situation for South Korea under this decision. Now, given that Trump has indicated a fast-paced resolution to the tariff discussions, giving a timeline of less than a month, and South Korea actually is awaiting a snap election in less than 2 months' time. Professor Choi, how should the current government under an acting presidency navigate its discussions with the U.S.?
I think government must stay calm and clear and consistent despite that the political uncertainty. So first, the negotiation must focus solely on protecting Korea's national economic the benefits, interest, without being influenced by that coming election timeline. Can say. Second, Korea should prepare flexible strategies such as one plan for a quick deal if talks speed up, and another for a longer negotiation if needed. And also, third, transparency is absolutely crucial, I think. So regular public updates can show both Korean citizens and a national partner that the core, the principle like a fair trade, the monetary stability and market openness will not change even under temporary leadership. And by staying steady and predictable, Korea will strengthen its credibility and bargaining position during this sensitive negotiation.
Right, so maintaining credibility, being flexible, and also being transparent to the public would be helpful. What about, I would also want to ask this question to Professor Lee. Are you on the same page with Professor Choi?
Yeah, I think U.S. is in a hurry, but we are not. So the U.S. is pushing for a quick resolution because of the political pressure and unstable financial market. On the other hand, South Korea is a transitional period with an upcoming election, less than 2 months. So we can use this period to observe how other countries are handling a similar negotiation with the U.S., allowing our country to develop a more informed strategy. Based on what Japan did with the Trump administration so far, making earlier decision is not necessarily helpful. So the acting government can communicate to the U.S. so that the significant decision may need to wait until a new administration is in place. This can be a good excuse to make any agreements that have necessary political backing and public support. So we should approach the negotiation more cautiously, taking the time to observe other talks between other countries and to assess the implication of any agreement that's occurring in other trade negotiations.
Right, so being cautious and buying a little bit time for the incoming administration would be helpful. Now, these negotiations seem to be unfolding under extraordinary pressure, so whether Seoul can protect its long-term economic interests without a fully elected leadership now remains to be seen. But as of now, we will have to conclude our discussion for tonight. Thank you so much for your insights and for your time, Professor Lee and Professor Choi. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.